Konbanwa, good evening, and welcome to this podcast. Failures are individual lessons. Now, I got to be honest with you guys. I recorded what I thought was going to be my first podcast yesterday. And my objective is to not only have it in the audio form, but in the visual form, because a lot of people like to watch YouTube. So, in the honor of failure, my actual first podcast, I'm not going to submit as a podcast. I am going to simply let it marinate on the YouTube channel for me, you, and everybody to look back at and kind of chuckle once I finally get this under my belt and get going with having a very productive podcast. But essentially, I recorded myself. I didn't have my makeup or anything done. I was walking the dog. So you see the butt of my dog through most of the video footage. And I'm pretty much, it just sounds like I'm talking to myself. So in an effort to serve and be of value to people, I'm not going to have that actually be the first podcast. This episode is actually going to be the first one, but just you and I know that my actual first one was yesterday. But because we fail and we learn, I wanted to keep it there and not delete it, and just something to look back on. And it basically hits to the point of this whole podcast, which is when we fail, it can completely immobilize us from moving forward. I want this to be a place where we share our failures and we learn from them. When we fail, it is not the end of the road, but instead the beginning of wisdom. Once we understand this perspective, when we fail, and we will, we can rise up with courage and knowledge and keep it moving. Now, that said, I want this to be a place where eventually I'm going to actually have people come onto the podcast. I'm going to interview them, and I want them to tell their failures. I want us to tell how they learn from them, or maybe even if they didn't learn from them. I want this to be real, raw, and uncut telling of what people go through, and I truly believe that we can all learn from one another. There's a lot of vulnerability involved with being transparent. I get that. I'm willing, though, because I want to be of service to whoever I can who is listening. And I know that I have learned most of what I've learned from people that are just simply being honest and just telling the real. That said, I was in a 3-day conference this weekend, and I'm going to be pulling a lot of nuggets from there in different podcast episodes. But today, podcast number 1, I want to talk about moving forward. Because you see, when we fail, I'm going to speak for myself. I tend to go 8 steps back, or I'm completely stifled. And that immobilization turns into procrastination. And what ends up happening is not a damn thing. So we have to learn how to shift our perspective and see that failures are lessons. And then we just got to keep it moving forward when stuff happens. So I want to tell you a story that this lady shared. I'm not going to give her name. And then I'm going to give you the 6 points that she shared with how that helped her move forward. And here's the story. So this woman and her husband had a child that was about to graduate from high school. Another one was in middle school. Both of them, the husband and wife, had businesses that were booming. You know, just like she said that they were at the height of the success of their businesses. Everything was going well. Everything was going well with the family, because you see, as the children were growing and pretty much self-sufficient, independent, she was able to spend more time with the dating and the marriage the part of the marriage where, it's time for us to focus on the two of us. And they were, and things were great. And so one day, for her business, she had to travel several miles, not sure exactly how far, but she was traveling and her truck stopped. She was stuck in her car in the cold for 18 hours. Now, mind you, the cell phone had gone dead. They sent a search party out for her. When they found her, she said she was sitting in the truck, relieved, but a police officer was walking toward her, and she got this feeling in her stomach like, I'm not opening the door. He got closer and closer, and her stomach started turning in knots, and she's like, I'm not opening the door. He walks up, knocks on the window, and he asks her name. She verifies it. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the car. With everything in her, she did not want to step out of that car, but she did. The officer took off his hat and he said, your husband is gone. Now, in that moment, she dropped to the ground. Why? We had all these plans. We had all this stuff that we were going to do. Everything's going great. What am I going to tell the kids? Daddy's not coming home. You see, good things happen. Okay. What? Siri just cut me off in the middle of my video. I'm not recording this again. It's not, I'm just going to pretend like it's alive. I apologize for that. Bad things happen to good people. But it's what you do with what happens to you that matters. So she got on this stage, and it was maybe a year and a half after she lost her husband. And she proceeded to share with us the 6 things that she said, she had applied these little rules to her marriage and her business, to life, and then all this stuff. But then with grief, she just didn't know anything else but to apply these rules that she had lived by. And they saved her. So here they are. The first one is let go. She said, you gotta be honest with your reality. Because if you're not honest with your reality and where you are now, you're always gonna wish. You're always gonna keep looking back. What if? And she said, quit trying to grab onto what isn't there. Because that's the quickest way to go nowhere. She said, you gotta look reality in the face. She said, no matter your crossroads, no matter your loss, even if you're bitter and resentful, and you're telling yourself, I'm never gonna love again, I'm never gonna trust again, forget this, forget that, you have to make a decision, and that's number 2. You have to make a decision to rise up out of that and do something. She says you have to create. And she said something really profound. You've given up the opportunity. You've been given the opportunity to turn your loss into a major part of your mission. Can you grab a hold of that? Now, we've all experienced loss, but that's heavy. Number 3, focus on what you want to feel. She said, fix your focus on what you want, not what you had, not what you lost. She said, you have to tweak your language, your belief, your confidence, your unstoppability. You have to reframe your words. There is healing in the reframing of the words. And the example that she gave is she said, she stopped saying to her kids, well, I wish your dad could see this. I wish your dad could be here at birthday and different, sports events. But she shifted her words and she said, your dad would love to have seen this. Your dad would be so proud of you. You see the difference in that? Just tweaking of our language. We need to watch our words. Now, I said I was going to try to keep these under 15 minutes, so let me speed up. She said you have to do the time. And the story she told was about Jonah in the whale. And this is going to be a little bit of take. We might go over 15 minutes with this first podcast. This is a little bit of a different take, one I've never heard about Jonah in the whale. You see, Jonah was a high achiever. He had big plans. But Jonah was ignoring his calling. Jonah ended up in the belly of the whale. Now imagine, he was trapped. He couldn't see left or right. He couldn't see before himself. He couldn't figure out up or down. All he could do was sit. Now, I want you to think about what grief feels like. You're stuck. And you're just sitting in the grief and the pain. And it feels like the world is all blocked out. You're just, you can't move forward. You can't see forward. You can't see left or right. You can't see around you. But listen to this. Even in that, when you can't find your way out, think about Jonah. All the while Jonah was in the whale, and while Jonah was feeling that loss, the whale was swimming. The whale was moving him to where he needed to be. You have to get your heart and mind right while you are being delivered to your calling. Now let that marinate a minute. No matter what you're going through, whatever mistakes you've made, while you're waiting, and you're waiting on, time, you're waiting on the healing. You don't know what left or right is, but you have got to decide. You've got to get your mind right. You've got to get your heart right. And all the while, God is going to be moving you, or whatever you believe in, nature, whatever your belief is, you have the belief that there is something more powerful than you. You are being delivered to your calling, your purpose, your mission. But if you don't have your heart and mind right, you're going to stay stuck in the whale. You're going to stay in the dark. Be open to possibilities. It's number 5. So let's say you lose your job. Your finances are terrible. When you can be open to the possibilities, you don't forget, like with loved ones, you don't forget the ones you've lost, but you have to be open to the possibilities that there is something greater. You have to become the person that is ready to handle what is coming for you. I don't know if you know Joyce Myers, but she says God will give you double for your trouble. And I believe that. Now, the last thing she said is you have to pivot. You have to be willing to pivot. Life won't look the same. It's going to be different when you lose someone, when something terrible happens in your life. but you've got to be flexible. You have to be willing to redesign your life. You have to be willing to shift. And what I want to add to that is you have to change the story that you're telling yourself. You have to change your stories that you're telling yourself. That goes with the mindset shift. All those things. Let go. Make a decision. Focus on how you really want to feel. Do the time, be open to possibilities, and pivot. And that said, I'm going to end this podcast with a quote about moving forward. I have realized that the best step to take when trying to move forward in life is to accept that sometimes we have to let go of the life we expected to have and to start living the life we are given. One more time. I have realized that the best step to take when trying to move forward in life is to accept that sometimes we have to let go of the life we expected to have and to start living the life we are given. Okay, that's great. So that said, thanks a lot for listening. Sorry for going over the 15-minute mark. I hope this has been of value to you, and I will see you tomorrow. I don't know if I'm always going to do a video recording, but I am going to definitely always have something that you can listen to, and I'm also going to have this posted on my blog as well. All right, keep your head up and keep moving forward. Bye-bye.